Hello everybody and welcome back to the multiplayer project where I didn't delete this comma. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Starting it in exactly the correct way, with a mistake. Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to head directly into the map because today we're going to be working on diagonal to normal tiles as well as miscellaneous map fixes. The first thing I want to fix is the double diagonals, but actually the first thing that I want to fix is I want to right here add in a this.transform so that it makes the tiles be children of the map. Wonderful. Okay, now is there anything else I did up here? I don't know. I actually had to close and reopen Visual Studio, so I don't actually have markers of the things I changed, but I didn't actually change that many things because we need to do a little bit of work here. Let's just check. I don't think I changed anything in the straight shape, although that is going to need some work, but right now we're not going to tackle that. For right now, we do need to tackle something in diagonals. More specifically, we need to check to see, before we do this check here, we need to check to see if this is a double diagonal or not. So we'll do if north height is greater than or equal to map heights xy, and if west height is also greater than or equal to map heights xy, and south height is less than map heights xy, and east height is less than map heights xy. In this case, then we are going to go ahead and set this. Otherwise, we are not. Closing bracket. There we go. So all this does is it checks to make sure that this isn't a double diagonal. I'm just going to copy this here. And we'll just paste this right here. Excellent. And we'll also do a closing brace. And then we'll need to change some of our signs here. So if north height is less than, and west height is less than, and our south height is greater than or equal to, and our east height is greater than or equal to, then it is in this rotation. Wonderful. Now down here, we will go ahead and say, if our north height, yep, we'll just leave that all exactly the same for right now. We are going to need to change these, but for right now, we'll do that just so that the formatting is all in place. So if north height is greater than or equal to, and this would need to be east height is greater than or equal to, and our south height does need to be less than, and our east height here should be west height. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy all of this and paste this right here. Wonderful. And then we just invert these signs. Less than, this will need to be greater than or equal to, and this will need to be greater than or equal to. Wonderful. So that will get rid of our double diagonals. Next, let's hop into the Unity editor here, and let's create ourselves our Cliff folder here for Cliff diagonal to normal. Excellent. And we're going to need to make those tiles. We already did that in the tile set. And those are these right here. So we're going to get rid of all of these other tiles. We're going to need to, of course, unpack this prefab. We'll grab just these 3 tiles. And we'll place these right out here. Wonderful. And then we will simply rename this one to tile cliff diagonal to normal 01. And I got rid of it. Okay. Tile cliff diagonal to normal 01. Now I'm going to copy that. There we go. We'll just paste these in. That'll be 02. And this one will be, of course, 03. Wonderful. And now we'll go ahead and add in our input objects and our mesh collider. There we go. And our tile. Wonderful. Now we'll come in here And of course we have to do this one at a time because Unity is silly. 1, 2, and 3. Excellent. And we'll set it into our tile set list. So this should be diagonal to normal tiles. And I did not pin that open. There we go. Diagonal to normal. And in we go. Wonderful. Okay, so now that we have that, of course we don't have our shore tiles done, but we'll come back to those in a little bit. That gets us our diagonal to normal tiles set up, although we do not have this set up correctly in terms of its materials. So let's do that. Green dark here and cliff here. Wonderful. Materials, cliff here and green dark. And then finally, materials, cliff, and green dark. Okay, so there's those materials set up. Those tiles are now fully set up. Let's go ahead and get actually putting in some diagonal to normals. So we'll do our region here, and this will be diagonal to normal. And we'll end that region. Wonderful. So we need 2 tiles adjacent to each other to be lower than our position, but every other tile is greater than or equal to our position. Wonderful. So we will now do if north height is greater than or equal to map heights XY, and northwest height is also greater than or equal to. I'm in fact just going to copy this entire block. We're going to need this a bunch of times. So northwest height is greater than or equal to, and then we're going to do west height is greater than or equal to, and southwest height is greater than or equal to. We'll go down onto a different line because we're going to run out of space here. South height is greater than or equal to, and southeast height, not seed, southeast height is greater than or equal to, and east height, we're also going to go with greater than or equal to for right now. And northeast height, not new, northeast height, is also greater than or equal to that. Okay, now obviously that's not going to work because we need 2 adjacent tiles to be less than, but this will give us our first block to copy. So terrain data XY dot terrain shape at this point is equivalent to terrain shape dot diagonal to normal, and terrain data XY dot rotation, we're going to have that equal to 0 for right now. I just want to check. Yep, we are getting diagonal to normal. Fantastic. So let's copy this and paste this in. We're going to need this, I think, 8 times. It's a little disgusting. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yikes. I do not like how messy that is. I'm sure there's a cleaner way to do it. I'm not thinking of it right now. Yeah, I 100% guarantee you there's a cleaner way to do it. But this is what we're going to do for now. We may refactor this a little bit later on. So this one here is definitely going to need to be less than map heights. So if our east height and our northeast height are the lower heights, let's pop into the editor here. We'll pop in this tile and just move it over here. So if our east height, or rather, east height and northeast height are our lower heights. So it should be this one and this one. So we're going to need to rotate this guy. And we'll get rid of that lock. There we go. We'll rotate this 90 degrees. So that would be if our east height and our northeast height. Yes, that is correct. So this should then be at 90. Wonderful. So now, if our east height is less than, and our, if I can find the less than button, there we go. And our southeast height, let's pop back over here, 180, so that is south and southeast. Yes. So this will need to be 180. Excellent. And then this would then be southeast and south, would be less than. Hang on a moment. What was this one? East and southeast. Should be 90. Right? Yeah. Or no, that's east and northeast should be 90. East and southeast would be down here. I think that's our inverse. Yeah, this isn't quite gonna work. We're gonna leave this at 180 for right now, but this isn't quite going to work. This one is also going to be 180, and I'm gonna mark this as not going to work. Wonderful. Okay. And then after that, we're doing south and southwest. So south and southwest. We're gonna have several of these that are not going to work, because we don't have 8 directions to rotate this in, right? So we'll do south and southwest. So this would be 270. Yeah, this is another one where it's not going to work. So this will be 270. And then we're going to put in not going to work. This is going to have to be normal to diagonal for each of these instead of diagonal to normal. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So that means that this one is, of course, going to be southwest and west, which means that this is going to be 270, because this is exactly the same in terms of how we're doing this right now. This is not going to be exactly the same because it's not, in fact, going to work. And then these last two, we need to have them be at 0, but this is going to be west and northwest. Excellent. And this last one is going to be, of course, northwest and north. So the northwest and north is the one that's going to work, right? Actually, I'm not sure it is. I need to think about that for a second. North and northwest. This is diagonal. Yes. Yes, north and northwest is the one that's going to work. So that would be this one is going to work. So this one is going to be marked as not going to work. Okay, so that's actually 3 that are not going to work. 1, 2, 3, 4 that are going to work. We only have the 190. Right. Because we need to copy this and paste this here. Wonderful. This one is going to be marked as not going to work because we need this to be north and northeast. And then that would, of course, mean east needs to be greater than or equal to. Okay. So let's go ahead and put an else in each of these statements. And I'm going to have to do that because it would drive me crazy otherwise. Okay, so let's just do that quick. We'll make these else ifs. We don't need to evaluate this every time if we find one of these. Excellent. Almost done here. There we go. Okay, so we have 4 of these that are not going to work, but I want to see exactly how they're not going to work. I'm going to fire up the server, and I don't have Visual Studio open for the server for some reason. I don't know how that happened, but okay. No, not the calculator. Visual Studio. We'll fire that up. And I'll just fire up the MMO server. It doesn't matter if I open up the server sandbox or the server itself, but here is the regular server. They're literally exactly the same. Okay, so let's run this. We're going to delete this. We may run into... Actually, we shouldn't run into any issues. Well, there will still be issues, right? This is not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a step in the right direction in theory. So we'll hop in here, and we can see that there is this corridor here. That's nice. We can see that there's some diagonals over here, and there's this going on. That's interesting. We'll take a look at that. Come here, map. Okay. What do we got going on over here? So this is a cliff straight, and then this is a diagonal to normal. So this is one of those that's not going to work, right? This is where it is below in the southwest and south. So if we pop back over here, we already flagged southwest and south as not going to work, if I recall correctly. That one is southwest and south. So southwest and south, yes. This is already flagged as not going to work. So what do we need to do here? Well, honestly, what we need to do here is we need to kind of invert this. So -1 on the x-axis, and then rotate this to be -90 degrees, so that would be 270 degrees. And like that, it works. Fascinating. Okay, so that's fine. What happens if instead of doing it this way, we do it on the z-axis? Okay, yep. And then on the y-axis... Actually, on the y-axis might be okay too. Yeah, on the y-axis is okay. We just have to rotate it 180 degrees. Okay, so that is a step in the correct direction. Now you can see we've got some things going on over here as well. That is expected right now. But you can also see, by and large, this is starting to look pretty decent. We're getting there. There's a few things missing still. But overall, that is not too bad. So let's go ahead and stop that, and we'll stop the server as well. And we will fire open the... not the server, we'll fire open the client again here. Because we need to add another bit of information to... oh boy, this ended up closing itself. Under... here we go. Scripts, representation, tile sets, tile data. That's what I'm looking for. We need a little bit more data here, so we'll do public bool mirrored. And we'll set that default to false. No, I don't want to search for semicolons. There we go. Okay, so down here, we should probably go ahead and say that our terrain data x, y, dot mirrored is equal to true for all of these where it's not going to work. Okay. So then we'll mirror these up over here. And we'll just say, let's see, this is the tile. So map ij dot transform dot local scale equals a new vector 3, and this will be, we'll go with -1, 1, 1. We'll only do that if data.mirrored. Okay. And I'll just put curly brackets there. So that'll mirror it, but that does not give us our correct rotation. We can get rid of the not going to work, but I'm not sure what correct rotation we actually need. It was it 180 degrees off? Hang on, let me check. So we've got ourselves our cliff diagonal to normal here, and then we're going to mirror that -1. You know what? Let's just test this as is. I'm quite certain it's not going to work. This is a server. I'm quite certain this is not going to work as is. But let's just turn on this new mirror function that we added and see what happens. If I see it with my eyes rather than trying to figure it out with my brain, it'll probably be slightly easier for me. So we'll go ahead and do this. Fire this on up. Connect to this here server, which has been going reasonably quickly of late. Get logged in, and here we are. Wonderful. So I fully expect that we have issues, and it looks like we indeed do. So if we look at, say, this here, this is a diagonal to normal, and this is definitely not at the correct rotation. And yes, there is an issue with corner insides with diagonals. That is a known issue. So this needed to be rotated minus 90 degrees. Okay. We should be able to just apply that uniformly. So we'll just do minus 90 degrees here. So this would be at 0. This one would be at 90. This one would be at 180. This one would be at 270. Okay. In theory, that should just work. Let's find out, shall we? Wonderful. So, once we find out if that works, then we can start logicking out that inside corner next to diagonals. That is definitely something I want to do. I don't think I solved that previously. No, I did not. So yeah, we can think about that as soon as I'm done with this. So let's just verify this. Well, that's a lot of straight lines there. Okay. So let's just take a look here. This is a diagonal. This is a corner inside, and yeah, that is going to be... Honestly, that doesn't even look like an issue. That's a corner inside, that's a corner outside. I'm looking for a diagonal, yeah, like this one. Diagonal to corner. So this is a straight here, and realistically... I mean, it creates these structures like this, with this inside corner and this diagonal here. That's definitely something I want to address. This as well. I don't understand why this is a flat tile. That's something I need to look into. But we're looking for diagonal to corners right now. That's a straight, that's a diagonal, and that's just a hover cliff. Okay. So this should really be a diagonal to corner. Because this cliff should absolutely be a cliff. Or rather, this flat tile is correct. It should be a flat tile. That's a corner inside, corner outside, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Here's a diagonal to normal. So that goes over to a second diagonal to normal. And that goes to a straight. That's fine. And then that goes to a corner outside. And then that's a diagonal to normal. Followed by a line of straights. And then a diagonal to normal over here. So in many cases, this is working. Excellent. And you can see here, yeah, this is a pretty bumpy terrain. We're probably going to tone that down a little bit later on, but for now I want it to be a pretty bumpy terrain, and I want to tackle this inside corner issue. So let's think about that. What happens when we create an inside corner? When does this happen? Well, we'll get rid of our diagonal to normal for right now, as well as our diagonal for right now. And we'll just take a look at our inside corner code here. So if our west height is greater than or equal to our east height, and our west height is also greater than or equal to our north height, and our west height is also greater than or equal to our south height, and our west height is also greater or equal to our current height. If all tiles are the same height, this may be an inside corner, otherwise it's flat, which is the default. However, they could also be greater than. So if it's greater than or equal to all of these, then we should check all of our diagonals, and all of them should be greater than or equal to map heights xy, except 1 if this is an inside corner. So let's take a look here. Yeah, in this situation, this is the same height as this, as well as this, and this. These are all considered the same height. However, when we look at the diagonal tiles, same height, same height, same height, lower height. That's why this is outputting an inside corner. So, how are we going to prevent this from outputting an inside corner when in reality, this should be a... What should this be in this situation? Like, this one should obviously be a flat tile, right? But in this situation, this guy... Realistically, this should be a normal to diagonal. Same height here, 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 here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is a situation I hadn't considered. Every tile here is below, or is the same or higher, except this tile, which is why it output a straight tile, rather than a corner to diagonal. Very interesting. Okay. Well, that's something, I suppose. Yeah, that certainly is. How do I want to tackle that? I'm kind of stumped. We've got a situation like this. This is a corner inside. This is a corner inside. And then this is a diagonal to normal. This is a corner outside. This should really be a straight. So what's going on here? Above? Or, well, this is... I'm just going to call it above. It could be above or equal. Above, 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 above. Above. Equal, or rather lower. Lower. That's why it output this. This is a situation where it should be a straight tile. But it did correctly determine that, according to the logic that I laid out, that this would be a diagonal to normal tile. Fair enough. So, how do I go about telling it, no, this should in fact be a straight tile? Or what about this situation here? This is an outside corner, when it should be a normal to diagonal. I feel like we need another pass. To detect things like this. And override this before it actually gets spawned in. Because this should definitely be a corner to diagonal, or a normal to diagonal. But this is in a situation where that would not happen. And it should not happen according to the logic that I laid out. Because 1, 2, 3, 4. All lower. 1, 2, 3, 4, all higher. Clearly, the logic that I laid out was slightly faulty. I mean, there's not necessarily a problem with that. We could fix this in a second pass. Similarly, this inside corner being here, that is something I really want to fix and figure out what's going on with this inside corner. I mean, we know that it's because this tile is below it, right? This is something we could also fix with a second pass by checking to see if there are two diagonal tiles like this. Okay. So I think that's the plan, is to do another pass here. After we know for a fact that all of our tiles are complete here, now we don't have our assigned data tiles done. And we're going to need those. Okay, let's go ahead and do assign data neighbors with no arguments. And then let's do generate terrain data second pass. And we'll pass in our tile data. Okay, we're going to get rid of this add tile data neighbors here. This is kind of too late for this to happen, which is why we're going to do it in assign data neighbors. So for our assign data neighbors, we'll just come down here, private void assign data neighbors. And we're just going to iterate through for int x equals 0, x is less than map size x, x++. And for int y equals 0, y is less than map size y, with capitals. I was hoping it would autofill that, but it did not. Y++. We're just going to assign our data neighbor of tile data and data. And of course, tile data is going to be, we're going to need our tile data 2D array tile data. And we're also, actually that's all we're going to need, because this will just be tile data x, y. Okay, so that gets us our neighbors before our second pass. We'll need to pass in tile data. Wonderful. And then we'll get ourselves our second pass. So private void, this would be generate tile data second pass. And then we'll take in tile data. I'm just going to copy this for loop and paste it right here, and we'll get rid of what's inside. Excellent. So, we're going to need to do a few things. First thing I want to do is, let's do a check for if tile data xy dot terrain shape is equivalent to terrain shape dot corner inside. If this is the case, then I want to check adjacent neighbors. So if tile data xy, I kind of want a shorthand way to do this, and I'm going to do that. So tile. And then right here, we'll just say tile equals tile data xy, just so that I can save some typing. And actually, this isn't a tile. This is a tile data. There we go. So if tile.north.terrainShape equals terrainshape.diagonal and tile.east.terrainshape equals terrainshape.diagonal, can we assume that those are connected? I mean, not necessarily. But we'll assume that for now, and I'm sure it'll run into issues a little bit later on. And then we'll just say else if tile.north.terrainshape equals... Actually, instead of north, we'll just do east.terrainshape equals terrainshape.diagonal. And tile dot... Let's see, instead of east, it would need to be our south. Dot terrainshape equals terrainshape.diagonal. Okay. Else if tile.south.terrainshape equals terrainshape.diagonal. And tile.west.terrainshape equals terrainshape.diagonal. For right now, we're going to assume that these are all connected but they probably aren't. Tile.west.terrain_shape equals terrain_shape.diagonal, and tile.north.terrain_shape equals terrain_shape.diagonal. Okay, if this is the case, we don't really care about the rotation. However, we can say tile.terrain_shape equals terrain_shape.flat. This will likely create issues, but it will also get rid of those inside corners that should not be there. So let's just do a region here, and this is going to be healing inside corners and diagonals. Excellent, and we will end that region. Wonderful. That way we just have this nice handy dandy little minimization, because this is probably going to be a pretty big function in the second pass here. And I'm just wondering, generate terrain data second pass. Or I called it tile data here. I'll call it terrain data just to be consistent. Okay, let's give that a test and see how that breaks it. I guarantee you that's going to break it a little bit, but let's see how. So we'll connect to this server, and we shouldn't see those interior corners now. But we'll probably see some areas where it maybe should be an interior corner, and it is not. Okay. So it didn't solve this issue, and I didn't really expect it to. Let me just get the camera moved around here. So this issue that I'm talking about right here, there's an inside corridor here. This is diagonal to normal and diagonal to normal, and that's why it didn't fix that. This is a flat here. Then that's a diagonal to normal, and in reality this should be diagonal to diagonal. This is a case that we don't have. Okay, so we'll move on from that one, and this is the same exact case here. So we can solve this. Let's hop back over to our code here. And we want to say if this is equivalent to diagonal, or if this is equivalent to diagonal to normal. That's going to get a little bit extensive on the old typing. I'm just trying to think if there's a easier way to do it. We could make an extension here. Public static class terrain shape extensions. And then we would have a public static bool is diagonal method, and this would take in this terrain shape like that. And then this would simply say if shape equals terrain shape dot diagonal, or shape equals terrain shape dot diagonal to normal. Return true. Else, return false. Okay, that gives us a handy extension there. So instead of doing it this way, we can get rid of this and say terrain shape dot is diagonal. Do I need? Yeah. We definitely need that. Okay. Wonderful. So that gave us that extension. So dot is diagonal. That's definitely an easier way of doing it. So we will simply paste that in here. Wonderful. Okay, so that will potentially cause issues. We'll see. Let's fire up the server and see what exactly that ends up doing. This will be an interesting experiment. We'll enter that world. Okay, so let's take a quick look at what's going on over in our entrance area over here. I'm curious about this corner right here. Okay, yeah, this is the situation that we've talked about before, where we've got a corner outside and a cliff diagonal here. This should really probably be a normal to diagonal. And this is one of those situations where this shouldn't exist anymore, except that this is a diagonal to diagonal right here. And that kind of doesn't exist. This is a case that we aren't catching currently. This is a cliff diagonal. This is a corner inside. I don't necessarily hate the little pocket it creates here. Yeah, I don't know. It's not the worst, to be sure. And we've definitely made some considerable progress here. There's no doubt about that. A lot of those corner insides are simply no longer happening, and in fact, almost all of them are simply no longer happening. Even this one, that one could be a corner inside, even though this is a diagonal to normal here. And this really probably should be a diagonal, or rather, this should really probably be straight, realistically. That's something that we can catch in the second pass. So I think I'm going to overall call this a good amount of progress for today. We are getting really close to having this all set up correctly. And as we find more of these little issues, we can put in catches in our second pass to deal with them exactly like this. Wonderful. For now, I think I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in here, and next episode, we are going to work on, if we can hop over to the to-dos, we're going to work on finishing our second pass. Finishing second pass. And we are also going to, if we have time, start working on water. Water is going to be a bit of a tricky thing. We're going to have to do some regional neighbor checking, which is something that we don't currently have the... We don't currently have the tech for that, so we're going to have to advance our technology by spending some science points or whatever. But until then, you can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.